Kelly, thanks very much. President Rosengren, thanks for joining us today.
Nice to be with you, Steve.
Let me start off with what Kelly was just talking about, these jobs numbers. The unemployment rate at 8.4% coming in much better than expectation. The payroll number, a little bit light perhaps on the private sector, but more or less in line with expectations. Does either number change your outlook on the economy?
So I think the employment report, as you just highlighted, was a pretty strong report and a little bit stronger than I was expecting. Getting the unemployment rate down to 8.4% from 10.2% is certainly a significant improvement. I would highlight that a lot of the job gains were in retail, trade, and leisure and hospitality. So I think a lot of this is people on temporary layoff that have come back to work. I think one of the concerns I still have is how many people are going to be unemployed for an extended period of time. So in any major city, you can tell that retail, trade, leisure, and hospitality are still sectors that have substantial problems. And if you looked at the duration of unemployment, those unemployed 15 to 26 weeks is currently at 6.5 million people. So we have a long way to go before we're fully recovered. But I would say this employment report overall was a very positive one.
I just want to follow up on that, President Rosengren. Are we getting there faster than you thought? I know that the street had a consensus of sort of ending the year around 9%, even above 9% on the unemployment rate. Is it possible we get back down to normal faster than you thought?
So I think it's still going to take a while. There's a lot to happen between now and the end of the year. One of the big question marks is what happens with the pandemic. We're getting into the fall. People are going back to school. Colleges are back in session. We've seen a number of problems in the South and the West. Those have subsided somewhat, but are still at elevated levels. And we're seeing parts of the northern Midwest now showing more problems from the pandemic. So I think a lot depends on how the pandemic evolves. I certainly hope we get a better situation as we get to the end of the year, but I think it's far from certain at this point.
I'm going to come back to the economy a little bit later, but I want to shift gears and talk about the Main Street lending facility, which the Boston Federal Reserve runs. And honestly, President Rosengren, I'm not sure how to think about this. You've gone from zero to over $1 billion loans on a program that didn't exist before in a relatively short period of time. On the other hand, for the Main Street lending facility, it's much smaller so far than the ones that's available to the big companies. So my question is, first of all, do you feel like the standards, are you charging too much money for these loans at 3%? Is that a reason why the ramp up has been slow?
So I think the ramp up has been slow because the facility that you highlighted, the corporate facility, involves purchasing things in the market, which you can do very quickly. Actually participating in loans takes a lot longer to do. And as a result, it doesn't surprise me but that there's been a slower uptake. As you highlight, we have $1.2 billion in settled loans. As of last night, we have $1.7 billion in loans that have either been accepted or in process. So I think the ramp up is going about as I would have expected. And we are seeing a significant number of banks and a significant number of borrowers that are starting to utilize the facility. And we're also seeing a number of banks that initially only had one or two loans, now at 5, 6, and adding loans pretty regularly. So I think we're going to continue to see a ramp up. How many loans we actually do, I think, again, depends on the pandemic. If the pandemic gets worse, I would expect to do a lot more lending. I would also highlight that we hit another milestone today, which is the nonprofit part of the Main Street loan facility was opened up. It's too early to know what kind of uptake we're going to have on that. But as you know, there are a lot of people employed in the nonprofit sector. Think of universities, colleges, hospitals, many other nonprofit organizations. So I think there is an opportunity for that. It'll probably slowly ramp up again because it takes a little time to negotiate those loans. But I fully expect that over time, we'll start seeing a lot more nonprofit loans as well.
All right, let me come back to the outlook, President Rosengren, and thank you for that. What's the outlook for GDP? We've heard that this quarter looks like it's on pace to be, near a 30% rebound. When do we get back to normal, in your opinion?
So I'm not sure I'd focus on GDP as the normal. Those numbers have gyrated substantially because of the pandemic and the fact that many businesses had to shut down either because of state mandates or because the infection rate was so high in their area. So I think a better gauge of where we are is actually the unemployment rate.